it though? There it is. Hey ladies, happy Monday. Thank you for your patience tonight. I should know not to leave my house before these Monday nights because traffic and trying to get back in time is always crazy. We are going live on Facebook. Up the chat. Okay, chat is open in the Zoom. We are almost live on Facebook. There it is. Okay. Are y'all excited to talk about protein tonight?
I am.
Shayna says yes. Bronson says yes. He always ready to talk about protein. He's over there cooking some protein right now. You got some eggs going? What else you got going over there tonight, babe? Beef and eggs. Like every other day that ends in Y. Ooh, Whitney's making bacon right now. Woo, woo. Ooh, there's a quiz question. How much protein versus how much fat does a typical piece of bacon have? Can anybody answer that in the chat? Whitney, don't cheat. Don't look at your package. Let me pull up my notes for tonight. All right.
I'm embarrassed that I don't think.
You don't know the answer to that? Celeste says 1-to-1 question mark.
Not enough, because it's only one piece of bacon.
Bronson said the answer is not enough because it's only one piece of bacon. Yeah, Celeste, that's pretty spot on. Most bacon that you're going to find out there. And here's a quick little, at the very beginning of the masterclass, before we get into anything else, quick little cheat sheet fact for protein and fat. An egg and a typical piece of bacon each are going to be about 1-to-1 fat to protein. Usually it's going to be like 5 to 6 grams of each. Some bacon can be 2-to-1 fat to protein. More fat, double the fat of the protein, depending on which brand, where you get it from, you know, where they're sourcing it, what so or where they're cutting from, what kind of pigs and all of that. So definitely read your labels, but typically, let's say you have an eggs and bacon breakfast and you're doing like, let's say 3 eggs and or 4 eggs and 4 pieces of bacon, you're talking, you know, 1-to-1, let's say 5 grams of each, you know, that's what, 20 grams of protein to 20 grams of fat. Some are going to be more like 7 grams of fat to 4 or 3 or 5 grams of protein in bacon. So most of the time the bacon is going to lean a little more on the fat side. Eggs, you actually get some protein in the yolk as well as the whites. The whites are pretty much all protein, and then the egg with the yolk is going to be closer to 1-to-1. But that's going to be like 1 gram of protein, maybe more than fat. But eggs and bacon are both an example of pretty much a 1-to-1 most of the time. Okay, so let's talk about tonight's masterclass. I always like to start by saying what this masterclass is not going to be and then what you can expect. So tonight's protein masterclass is not going to be about what your protein macros should be, how to figure out how many grams of protein to consume in a day. Do you need to eat more because of XYZ? Do you need to eat less because of XYZ? Should you fear protein on keto? All of those questions are answered in my protein masterclass, my original protein masterclass that is all about protein macros. Why, how much, how to determine your protein macro. That was all talked about in that masterclass. Tonight's masterclass is a practical masterclass. This is once you know what your protein target is, your protein macro, what you're trying to hit on a day-to-day basis. We're talking about food on tonight's masterclass. We're talking about food selection, meal pairings, tips, tricks, snacks, and hacks to get you to your protein goal. So this is a fun one. This is all about the foods. How do you hit your protein like a pro? So we had a great chat. We still have a great chat going on in the group with a post that I made yesterday, I believe, about asking for my pros, my veterans to drop in and give their tips and tricks and hacks for how they hit their protein every single day. Because I've got a lot of you in this group who've been doing this for a long time and know how to do it like a pro, no matter what challenges life throws at you. Not only do you hit your protein, but for some of you, it's hard to even limit your protein. Like you want to eat even more than that, and it's easy for you to do so. So now I'm not finding that post in here, but there was some great comments going on under there. I'm trying to find it so I can catch any questions that may have popped up that I didn't see before. Let's see if it pops up. Because we did have a couple of people sharing their struggles on there. It tends to be one side or the other with this. There tends to be a group of folks, especially my ladies, who are new to building muscle, new to having this high protein goal to hit. Most women for most of our lives have not eaten enough protein. And typically as we get older, right, we know for my ladies in your 50s, 60s and up, even 40s, and our mothers, usually we see the older and older we get, the less and less we eat, right? So I've said this on other masterclasses, but I'm going to say it again because it's really important to know. We do not lose strength, lose muscle, have bone degeneration, all of these things that supposedly happen because of age. Those are not age related. They're only age related because as we age, our lifestyles change. And as we change our lifestyle, we are less active, we're more sedentary. Most women are not picking up weights and lifting heavy later in life. Most women are eating less and less protein as they get older. And these are the things that are causing the aging. It is not the other way around. It's not the age that's causing these things to happen. So if you get your lifestyle in check, you can actually improve all of these things with age rather than expecting them to just happen. So the keys there are building muscle and eating enough protein. And eating enough protein is part of how you build the muscle. So for a lot of my ladies who are new to this lifestyle, eating as much protein as you have to build and maintain your muscle, and to change your body composition, right? Lose body fat while you're maintaining or building muscle. It's tough. It's tough for my ladies who are new to hit their protein. And so I get that question a lot, and this is why I brought it up here. It's been a theme with some of my newer clients recently, so I really wanted to help them out. Cool, let's see. Let me pop into the group. Oh, there it is. There's the post. It's a fun one. You see the GIF with the chick eating, like biting into a big slab of ribs. That was the perfect GIF for that post. So let's see. We had some great ideas listed there. So thank you for my veterans for hopping in with your tips. Please continue to do so. And for all of you who post in the group and share your food, please keep doing that. Share your meals. One of the biggest things in this lifestyle that helps us stick to it is when we can get ideas and things that make it fun and interesting and enjoyable, right? It's all about enjoying it. That's what makes it sustainable. So keep sharing your recipes, keep sharing your meals. That really helps a lot of people. Yeah, we got some great meal ideas. Let's see the struggles. Did anybody share any specific struggles I want to make sure I address tonight? I think most of the struggles were just in general, just getting enough. Yeah. And like trying to stay under a calorie count or trying to keep your fats lower while increasing your protein. We will definitely talk about that tonight. Okay, cool. All right, yep, okay, cool. We'll hit all that. We'll hit the important things tonight. Okay, so what is this masterclass going to talk about tonight? Like I said, strategies, tips, tricks, snacks, and hacks to hit your protein macro. But we're going to start with some of the big, let's see how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tips, 6 kind of basics for hitting your protein. So we'll start with those, the 6 basics, and then I'll get into the fun stuff, the hacks for increasing your protein. All right, so let's get into the basics. Okay, nitty gritty. All right, number 1, plan in advance. Don't leave it up to chance. I thought I was so cute coming up with that. It is not going to happen by accident, ladies. You're not going to accidentally hit your protein macro. You have to commit to it, make a plan, and then thoughtfully prepare how you're going to hit that plan, how you're going to execute the plan. Just like going to the gym, starting up a fitness routine, right? You can't just wing it and think it'll happen without putting it on the calendar, laying out your workout clothes in advance, committing to it and making it a priority. Protein is the same way. Once you get macros to follow, you're actually going to have to think in advance, plan in advance, and have a plan of action moving forward. So commit to hitting your protein no matter what, make it a priority to you, and plan in advance. How are we going to do that? Okay, first things first. And yes, I'm going to talk about snacks. I said I'm going to talk about snacks tonight, but number 2 rule of thumb, eat meals, not snacks. This goes way beyond protein. I will say that without changing anything else, even if you were to not even embrace a low carb lifestyle yet, or figure out your calories or track calories or macros at all, one of the first tips I would have for anyone to get healthier is to stop snacking and commit to eating meals. Have the mantra, when I eat a meal. 10 times out of 10, what's sending people off track is snacks. I will say probably all clients, none of my clients are having problems with their meals. The meals are never the problem. The snacks, the sweets, the in-between stuff, the nibbles, the bites, that's the problem for everyone, all the time, 100% of the time. So the first rule of thumb should be, whenever possible, do not snack. plan to have meals. If you are playing around with meal timing and trying to figure things out and you realize with your work schedule, it's going to be impossible to have 3 meals a day at regular intervals. So you're doing 2 larger meals, but you can't eat so much in one meal. And then you're starving by the time you get to the next meal and you need something in between, but it can't be like a sit down whole meal because you're working, for instance. That is when you could plan a snack. But I will say the snacks should be planned just like the meals. Instead of thinking of snack foods, think of it as, let me plan a smaller meal. It's a meal. I'm composing the meal the same way I would if it was a sit down, longer, larger meal, but it's smaller in size and maybe more easy to eat on the go. So we will be talking about what those options are. I'm going to give you some ideas, and I'm sure the ladies will share in the chat and in the group lots more ideas than I can even think of, because we all have different palates and taste buds and things we enjoy, and things we've picked up along the way. But the first plan should be not to live on snacks, not to be grazing all day. Most of us coming to a low carb lifestyle were the grazers. We were always grazing. That was me big time. I'm Italian, Greek girl. I loved my antipasto platter type of thing. I could eat tapas, little appetizers just all day long. I keep forgetting this water bottle has a straw, so I keep trying to like take it to the head, and that doesn't work. But the grazing is doing no favors for your blood sugar, for your digestion. We need to give our digestion a break between meals, allow ourselves to fully digest, and then go back for the next meal. You're also losing touch with your hunger and satiety signals when you're snacking all day. You're not giving yourself a chance to experience real hunger and to know what that feels like. So, and that's so much more along the lines of the mindset and the habit, which, I love to talk about. So all in all, snacks are not benefiting you. Focus on meals. So my quick reference for hitting your protein macro is look at your protein, target your protein macro for the day. Consider your regular schedule and your hunger signals and your satiety, how much you can eat in a sitting, and consider what's best, what has been working for me. How many meals a day do I typically eat? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? And I'm not going to tell you there's a perfect one to do. The perfect one is going to be the one that works best for you, where you're not getting starving in between and hangry in between meals, but at the same time, you're not eating every 2 hours. You certainly don't have to do what the typical dietitians are going to tell you to eat every 2 to 3 hours. That's for people who are eating high carb and whose blood sugar is doing this, and they have to try to balance it out that way. So if you're already on a ketogenic low carb lifestyle, you don't need to do that. Your blood sugar is already going to be much lower. I love what Sarah has to say. Make macro planning like a fun puzzle to solve. Yes, many times I've considered tracking in my nutrition app, kind of like Tetris. We call it macro Tetris. Where do things fit in and what can I plug in? That's part of that planning ahead piece, planning your day in advance and plugging everything in. I'm gonna get back to that in a minute before you eat. So figuring out your meals, calculate how much protein you're going to need in each meal based on how many meals you typically eat in a day. So let's say you have 100 grams of protein you're trying to hit in a day, and you have 2 meals in a day. That's going to be 50 grams of protein per meal. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. At least I think so. So understand, okay, how many grams of protein am I going to have to plan to hit in my 2 or 3 or 4 meals a day? And I typically would recommend anywhere between 2 and 4 meals a day, depending on you, your schedule, what works best for you. Anything within there is going to be perfectly fine. I love 2 or 3 on a ketogenic lifestyle. So once you've done that, I have another tip coming up that will connect really well with that. But number 3 is plan your meals and track your food before you eat it. told you that was coming. So number one was plan in advance, don't leave it up to chance. That was more about thoughtfully preparing and committing to prioritizing your protein, just like you would your workouts. Number two was eat meals, not snacks, and figure out how much protein you're going to need in each meal based on your protein target and how many meals you eat per day. Number three, track your food before you eat it. So that could be the night before you plug everything into your nutrition tracker to see where will it land if you eat this for breakfast, this for lunch, this for dinner. Oh, wait, that's not going to work because now my fat macro's over, and now I'm not hitting my protein. So let me move some things around, change the plan a little bit, see how it's going to work. I like to do it in the morning, each morning. I will do it while I'm in the bathroom, getting ready for the day, having my first emptying my bladder in the morning, plug in, pull up, I use Chronometer. I pull up Chronometer, I copy and paste the day before, and then I change things from there because I track all my supplements in there as well. I track my water intake. So copy and paste is perfect from the day before. And then maybe I'll change everything I eat. Maybe I'll just change one meal. Maybe I'll change 2 meals. Maybe I'll change some of the components of the meals, but it makes it really easy for me to plan that way. For some of you, I know you do it the night before and you plug it all in before you go to bed. That is great. And then for others, you want to do it kind of as you go. Now, this is going to be a little trickier until you become a veteran and a pro at this, but if you're doing it as you go, still, number 3 is really, really key, and that is track it before you eat it, not after. Don't wait until after breakfast to now plug in your breakfast and now, oops, I just screwed my day. I ate nothing but fat and like 2 grams of protein, and now how am I going to do the rest of the day? That is a sure way to fail. So always, always plug it in before you eat it. And if you're dining out, which I'm going to get to in a minute, that's another one of these key pieces. If you're dining out, never, never, never order before estimating in your nutrition tracker. So always track before you eat. Now, number 4, prioritize protein at every meal. You want to build your meal around a quality protein source or more than one quality protein source. So the meal is not being based on other things, it's based around an animal protein. Animal protein. So steak, shrimp, chicken, fish, lamb, beef, pretty much anything. But pick your quality protein source and then build around that. If you're eating veggies, if you're not carnivore, that's going to be your veggies, maybe nuts and seeds, maybe your added fat sources, but always pick your proteins first and build your meals around those. Hey, Helen, glad you could jump in. You're here for the fun part. I'm still going through the basics, and then we're going to get into the real fun hacks part. So let's see, that was number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this is the biggie. This is going to be the one we get into in a minute. And I'm creating a cheat sheet to help you with this one. Familiarize yourself with lean sources of protein versus fatty sources of protein. As we started the masterclass, I asked the $1 million question, how much protein versus how much fat is in a piece of bacon, a typical piece of bacon. And then an egg, they're pretty similar typically. Sometimes bacon, depending on where you get it from, is going to have a lot higher fat, but a lot of them are pretty close to 1-to-1 protein to fat by grams. An egg is typically going to be 5 grams of fat, 6 grams of protein, something along there. Bacon, I tend to see it very similar, although typically it's going to be maybe 6 or 7 grams of fat to maybe 3, 4, or 5 grams of protein. So these are the kinds of things to start learning if you're not already familiar. Which sources of protein are like pure protein? If I eat this, it's nothing but protein, right? Which sources are fattier, and if I eat this, it's going to blow my fat macro? And then which ones are more of a 2-to-1 protein to fat? I'll give you a few of them, and then I'm going to create this cheat sheet for you so you have quick reference columns of foods to look at to say, okay, if I pick from this column, it's like pretty much nothing but protein. That's going to be your chicken breast, turkey breast, skinless, boneless, your whitefish, shrimp, egg whites, chicken and turkey deli meats. Some, you can find some roast beef deli meats that are closer to pure protein. They're still usually going to have a little bit of fat. And a lot of the deli meats, like even the lean ones, the chicken and turkey, will have like a gram or two of carbs, depending on how clean you can find them. But pretty much all of those are going to be nothing but protein. Tuna, as long as it's not packed in oil, is going to be pure protein. Obviously, protein powder supplements, although some of those are going to be packed with a lot of carbs, so you got to watch out. And some have a lot of fats as well. But we're going to talk about protein supplements in a minute. Let's see, drop some of your other pure protein, like nothing but protein foods. If you're doing things like protein sparing recipes, those are going to pretty much be all protein, because the PSMF diet, protein sparing modified fast, is nothing but protein. So if you're doing egg white bread and things of that nature, so egg whites and anything made with purely egg whites is going to be pure protein. So egg whites, chicken, turkey, fish, whitefish, not fatty fish, but whitefish, shrimp, some of your other shellfish, lobster, scallops are going to come with some carbs, but they're not going to have fat. Tuna, and your ahi tuna goes with that as well. Those are pretty much it for the most part. Oh, and then you have your wild game meats like elk and venison are very, very lean. So they have very little fat and very high protein. So those are like pure proteins. Then you have your protein and fat foods, and pretty much all beef is going to have some level of fat. The leanest beef you can find is going to be eye of round, and that has very little fat, maybe just like 3 grams, I think, to like 24 or more grams of protein. So that will probably be your leanest cut. Or if you find like deli meat, roast beef that has very little fat, as well as next to that is probably going to be your top sirloins, your bottom sirloin. Those are pretty lean, but they're going to have a little bit more fat than that. And then going up from there, you have your New York strip is either going to be, depending on where you get it, 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 protein to fat. A lot of beef and lamb. Lamb is going to be fattier. It's on the fattier side usually, but certain cuts like leg of lamb, the shank, the sirloin. The sirloin or the loin of anything is usually going to be leaner. I need to also add pork loin to the very, very lean protein list. Most pork is going to have more fat, but the loin is going to be very, very lean. Yep, elk, very lean. Elk, venison, very lean. Venison is deer. So a lot of the wild game meats are leaner. Goat meat is leaner than lamb for sure. And then what else was I going to say on that? The beef, typically you're going to start getting into the 2-to-1 and then up to the 1-to-1 with different cuts of steak. And then your ground beef, you can find ground beef that's leaner. So the leanest one I typically find is 96%. Goat tastes, it's not as gamey as the lamb. It's not as gamey as some of the other game meats, but it does have that slight game taste, but it's a little more mild. To me, it's kind of like the chicken of the wild game industry, if you will. I like goat. I love goat in a curry, like a coconut curry goat. I haven't done that in a long time. Rabbit, yeah, rabbit is very lean. I wouldn't necessarily recommend rabbit. There's a reason they call it rabbit starvation. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole though. Okay, so familiarize yourself with sources of protein, which ones are leaner and which ones are fattier. And then you'll be able to use my cheat sheet as a quick reference for that. So know your meats and combine them appropriately to manage your fat macro while you hit your protein macro. And then number 6, the final basic rule of thumb, avoid dining out as much as possible when you're really trying to dial in your macros. It is going to be very difficult to nail your macros when you're dining out. So keep it to a minimum. But if you must, order the most simple single ingredient dishes as you can, or even single ingredient proteins. When I dine out, I always get a grilled steak, chicken, shrimp, or fish of some sort. Grilled, no sauces, no complex jambalaya kind of gumbo soups or casseroles, or nothing complex like that with a lot of sauces and a lot of ingredients. Simple, grilled, one ingredient. And then if you're doing your veggies, you can order your veggies on the side, or order the dish, whatever dish is the entree that they usually have with like a starchy carb and a veggie, and get 2 veggies instead of the starchy carb. You will, typically the meats are going to be the safest when you're dining out, especially when you can go to places that, you know, it's going to be grilled without oils, like your Texas Roadhouse, your Longhorse Steakhouse, things like that. A lot of them are cooking with oils. So ask them the question. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Ask them the questions that you need to know. Is it cooked in oil? What kind of oil are they cooking in? Could they cook it without the oil? Probably the best bet, unless you're really sensitive to dairy, is going to be if they have to cook it in something, ask them to cook it in real butter, and ask if their butter is real butter or if it's cut with oil. Tell them you're allergic. You know, have be unapologetic about it. But typically the veggies, 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10 are going to be cooked in oil. The meats you can be a little safer with, but the veggies, a lot of the time, it's hard to avoid that. There has been like one place I've actually gone where I was able to get, when I was eating veggies, I was able to get asparagus grilled without anything on it, with salmon without anything on it. Salmon is a fattier fish, by the way, especially if you're getting it, if it's farmed, if it's Atlantic, if it's got the skin on, it's going to be a lot fattier. Wild caught is typically leaner, and that also goes for grass-fed. Your grass-fed meats and your wild caught fish are typically going to be leaner because the farmed ones are being fatted up on purpose. They're trying to make them larger, fattier, more enjoyable and appealing to people. So the grass-fed and the wild caught are actually going to give you some leaner options. Okay, so there's your top 6 basics. Plan in advance, don't leave it up to chance. Commit to it. Eat meals, not snacks. Plan your meals, track your food before you eat it. Prioritize your protein at every meal, build your meals around protein. Familiarize yourself with lean versus fatty protein sources, and then avoid dining out as much as possible. And if you do, order very simply. And ask them, how many ounces is this? And then track it as a cooked entry. Look for a cooked entry so that you're tracking it the way that when they tell you how many ounces it is, it's likely going to be cooked, which means it's going to be higher in the raw version. So track it as a cooked entry when you're tracking it. There's never any excuse to not be able to at least estimate your macros when you're dining out. But you have to ask the questions. Okay, let's get into some of the fun hacks for increasing your protein or managing your fats while you increase your protein. All right, hack number 1, combine protein sources in a meal. One of the number 1 questions I get asked as a carnivore is, well, what do you have with the steak? What do you have with the chicken? Whatever it is, especially my mom when I go visit. It's, well, we're having salmon. What do you want to have with it? You know, we're going to have spinach, whatever. What do you want with it? I'm like, for one, it is just fine. It doesn't have to have a side. But especially when I'm visiting family, because they're eating fattier meats and they're not trying to hit a protein goal. So a lot of the time, if I just eat what they're eating, I'm going to be eating a lot more fat and a lot less protein. So I will say, well, I will have some shrimp with my salmon or with my steak, or I will have some chicken with my steak, or I will have some eggs or egg whites, or, I will add a lean protein source to a fatty meat and combine meats and have multiple meats in one meal. Steak and shrimp is a beautiful classic combination. Chicken and beef. I love to do lamb and beef. I used to do a lot of burgers before I got into keto and I was more paleo. I would make these green burgers. That doesn't sound appetizing, but they were delicious. But it was ground turkey. My first couple of bikini preps, I lived on ground turkey. I can't even eat or think about or smell turkey anymore. I can't deal, because I lived on it for so long, because I was not I've never been a huge chicken fan. But I wore out the turkey, and now I pretty much only have turkey at Thanksgiving. But I used to do a lot of ground turkey. And so I would do these ground turkey burgers and they would be so dry and so uninteresting. So I would take avocado, and then whatever greens I had that would be going bad in the fridge if I don't use them, I would do a lot of herbs. I always used to have a lot of fresh herbs around. I still do sometimes. I'll do like dill now. I love to do dill, but I used to have parsley and dill and cilantro around. And so I would just throw a bunch of that in there, or I would do kale or spinach or whatever I was into at the time. I used to love arugula. So I would throw in the greens with the avocado in a food processor, and then it would make it like this soft mush. And then I would mix that in with the meat, with the turkey, and maybe sometimes I would throw it in a whole egg. And then it would create a much more juicy, enjoyable turkey burger. So I used to mix turkey, like the 99% ground turkey. And here's a little tip. I know Maria learned the hard way. Turkey comes, just like beef, in different percentages of lean to fat. So if you're buying the ground turkey, read the labels. And this is just another rule of thumb too. Always read labels. Don't ever assume. I should add that to the list. That could be number 7. Never assume. We all know what happens when we assume, right? So read the labels and know what you're buying. But the 99% lean ground turkey is super, super, practically pure protein. So I would do that and blend that, mix that with beef and do turkey and beef burgers or turkey and lamb burgers to cut the fat. Also, keep looking when you're in the grocery stores, look at new options, because I would do a lot of the ground lamb, and I got used to the lamb just always being 1-to-1 fat to protein, or even a little bit more fat than protein. And it would get really sad when my macros got low and my fat got low, because then I'd be doing like 2 ounces of lamb, and it just made me sad to eat that little in a meal, and then I'd have to do like 96% ground beef to catch up with the fat. But I found one at Costco that's a spring lamb, and it's 2-to-1 protein to fat. So that works out much better. So now I can eat a lot more lamb and not blow my fat macro. So look at those labels, but combine your protein sources. You can combine anything. Any protein sources generally go pretty well together. It's all about the spices you use. So don't think about your meals like you have to only have one animal protein source. Let's see. Sarah asked, what do I do with the yolks? What do you mean, what do I do with the yolks? I eat them. Most of the time I eat whole eggs. But here's a hack, right? So we talk about combining protein sources. That was number 1. Hack number 2, it's like you read my mind, Sarah. Hack number 2 is there's 2 things you can pretty much add to any meal, and that is shrimp or egg whites. One of the simplest ways to boost your protein without going over on fat is take the same egg dish that you would normally make and make it with however many whole eggs you normally make, buy some liquid egg whites in a carton and just add some egg whites to it. So when I make my scrambled eggs, I love 3 whole eggs. To me, 3 whole eggs really makes it that creamy kind of scrambled eggs that I love. And for majority of the last 12 years I've been dairy free. So I wasn't doing cheese in my eggs. So I had nothing, I wasn't doing butter or cheese in my eggs or cream or anything. So it was just the eggs. So I was like, what can I do to make them fluffier? So I would cook them almost like they're going to be sunny side up, and then carefully move the yolks, move the whites away from the yolks, let them sit, and then turn off the heat and then scramble them up sloppy. That's, if you ever watch my Instagram stories and I talk about sloppy scrambled eggs, that's what I mean. I break the yolks at the very end, and then it makes it nice and creamy. So 3 is really the trick there. I can get away with 2, but 3 yolks really is what does that. So I will start adding egg whites when I really need to boost the protein and cut the fat for the day. The fat content in that meal is going to be the same, but now the protein content is higher. But you can also do this with other meats when you're doing like stir fries. You can throw some egg whites in there and it stir fries up in there really well. So you don't really have to worry about that. Yeah, I don't separate my yolks and my whites from the whole egg. I just buy the cartons of egg whites because I'm not going to waste yolks. We don't waste around here. I don't like food waste. So yeah, so I just keep a carton of egg whites in the fridge, and then I can toss it into anything. Or I can make PSMF recipes with it. I can actually, that's the very next one. So there we go. But shrimp is another great thing you can pretty much add to any meal and, you know, boost it up, make it a little more enjoyable. It's a really easy way to add pure protein without messing up a dish, if you will. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get to that last little bit of water, so I have my backup here, my coffee flavored, no caffeine, no sweetener, naturally essenced carbonated water from LaCroix, everybody calls it something different, but Coffee Exotica is what it's called. I had to order it on Amazon because I can't find it in stores, in case anyone's wondering. Okay, so that was number 2. So number 1 hack, combine your protein sources. Kind of a 1B or a 2 is shrimp or egg whites are an easy add to anything. The coffee, Tiff, is that what you're asking about? It is pretty good. I haven't had it in a while, and actually this is my first sip in a while, and I was like, it's better than I remembered it. I bought these when I went on the Lion diet and I was not doing any coffee, and I really missed the flavor of coffee. The first time I tried it, it really just kind of tasted a little bit like Coca-Cola. So actually, Tiffany, this would be a great replacement for your Diet Coke. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot better than I did the last time. How about that? Now I'm getting more of the coffee. It's giving more coffee than it was before. And there's another brand too. Well, it was an off brand that I found at like Lidl or Aldi, which made me even think to look for this because I never would have looked for it. But they had one that was an off brand, and it was a coffee flavored sparkling water. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And they had like a caramel coffee and a vanilla coffee one. And those were amazing. And they went on like deep on sale. I bought like a 4-pack for $1 and some change. I should have bought them out of everything they had because when I went back, they were gone. So then I had to go looking on Amazon, and that's when I found this. So yes, girl, give it a try. Okay, so number 3 hack is PSMF recipes. And this is your protein sparing modified fast. Enter my girl, Maria Emmerich's cookbook. This is the protein sparing modified fast method cookbook. This has, and it also talks about how to do PSMF, which I really encourage everyone to know the rules because it is not a lifestyle. And I see there are whole groups on Facebook of people, some of y'all might be in that group that I'm in, that do this pretty much as a lifestyle, which I would not encourage anybody to do. But I've talked about that on macros masterclasses, so I won't go down that rabbit hole. But She's got a ton of great recipes. She's got savory, she's got sweet, she's got breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, sauces, like a million things you can do that are high protein, low fat, low carb. So that's another great hack. And that's the kind of stuff you see some of us posting in the group about our protein sparing bread and crepes and all kinds of things. And it's not all baked goods. This has a lot of like fish recipes, shrimp, chicken. She's got some really good stuff in it. Lobster tails, steak, crab legs, tuna salads, turkey breasts, all kinds of things. So that's a great place. She also posts a lot of that stuff on her YouTube and on her blog for free. So, but I think that a cookbook like this is a great buy. So great thing to pick up. In case y'all haven't seen a couple of my posts, I am finally working on my own books, including a cookbook, probably multiple cookbooks, but one thing at a time. So the Keto Bikini Kitchen cookbook will, come hell or high water, be published by the end of the year. I will make it happen. Hopefully, if I can get it out earlier than the end of the year, then great. Maybe by the summer, who knows? But thank you for those of you who commented under that post and said that you would share recipes, because I want to feature client and Keto Bikini community members' recipes. And of course, I will shout you out. I'll share your socials, whatever you want me to share, or however little you want me to share. If you want it to be anonymous, that's fine too. But yeah, I have lots of ideas. I'll probably do a basic cookbook first and then a protein powder cookbook, because y'all know I talk a lot about my protein things that I make. And I have used all the protein powders you can imagine over the years, from plant-based to carnivore to everything in between. So yeah, that'll come. Kelly says Maria's pulled pork is a staple for me. Ooh. You know how I feel about pulled pork, girl. She knows I have the same love for pulled pork as she does. And Celeste says the pancakes with prime protein are bomb, which Celeste posted, I think yesterday or today. So search in the group. I always say this on the master classes because a lot of people don't know you can actually search the group like you could on Google. So go to the top of the group page and there's a search bar and you can search within the group for anything. So feel free to search for recipes if you can't find a recipe and you want to know if this community has any recipes to share. Drop a post and ask us to share. Somebody probably has one or has somewhere you can go look. Yes. All right. So PSMF recipes. All right. That's number 3. Number 4 hack. Perfect lead in. Protein powders and protein things you can make with protein powders. So you don't have to settle for just a protein shake. Although it can be a great on-the-go option when you are literally like, you can't even sit down or stand up to eat for a few minutes. And you just got to get your protein in and get from point A to point B, and you just don't have any option of any food. My rule of thumb with protein powders is ideally to limit them to no more than 1 serving per day. So a serving is a scoop. It's typically going to be somewhere around 20 to 30 grams. If you're replacing a meal with it, which I typically do not recommend replacing meals with it, but more like using it like I talked about earlier, where you have your meals planned, but it's because of your schedule or travel or whatever, you need something to get you from point A to point B in between the meals. And rather than looking for snack foods, especially processed packaged snack foods, a protein shake would be a better option. This is where it can be your mini meal or your snack, right? But a mini meal. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that ideal 30 plus grams of protein, bolus per day, as long as you're getting 2 other meals. If you're doing an OMAD and then supplementing with a protein shake, and you have like no other option than to do that, because Once again, I do not recommend OMAD, and it should not be a regular thing, but if you have to do that, then I would absolutely say, okay, do more than one serving. But typically I say do not replace meals and use protein powders as a supplement. That's what they are. They're a supplement. So the thing is, the protein powders are not going to have everything nutrition wise, micronutrition that your body needs. It's just giving you the macro. So it's not going to come along with everything your body needs that it could get from real food. So you don't want to get in the habit of going for protein shakes over real food. Now, Celeste is sick right now. Like when you're sick, protein shakes are usually going to go down a lot easier. So for any of my ladies out there, whoever said, oh, I was sick and the only thing I could get down was chicken noodle soup or rice or crackers, that is not truly what your body can handle. I've heard that so many times. My body could only handle crackers, saltines. That is what you were taught growing up. So your mind went back there. That's a mental thing. That is not a physiological thing. Your body does not want crackers, rice, bread, tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or chicken noodle soup or rice when you're sick. That is not what your body's looking for. Let's end that debate right here. But a lot of the time, your appetite is just not there when you're sick. And you got to get something in to at least get your protein in, if nothing else. Ideally, that would come in the form of like broth. You could do some egg drop soup. We talked about this on my private client chat this week because that was kind of a precursor to this discussion. We talked about what to do when you're sick. And one of the best things is to make a soup, a broth with, some herbs, veggies if you do veggies, and some chicken, some beef, something that you can get down in the soup, or drop egg whites. Egg yolks are going to make it creamy. Egg whites are going to become stringy like noodles. So make your own noodle soup without the noodles. Okay, yeah, so I'm getting some great ideas in here, and I encourage you to always drop into the group and share your ideas for what you do. But protein powders for things other than shakes. Sarah says, I love Equip chocolate collagen as a hot chocolate. It doesn't have any junk in it. Equip protein powder is one of my recommended protein powders. If you have not seen, I do have a thread in the group that is my recommended supplements, and I included my discount links because I like for you all to get discounts. So Equip is one of those. Prime Protein. It is a beef isolate protein powder, and they have collagen powders as well. So that's a great company that doesn't put a lot of junk in their stuff. But I do love a protein hot chocolate. So Bronson and I have done it with the Equip chocolate beef isolate, and the chocolate element, many of the chocolate elements to also get the electrolytes in there. Alice says Equip is my new addiction. It can be addictive. This is another reason why I say limit yourself to one serving per day, because it could easily become this like rabbit hole, especially when you're making protein desserts and indulgences and things of that nature. But I have a million ideas for protein desserts, because typically the way I say to use protein powder, I don't, like I said, ever use it to replace meals, but it's a supplement. And the best thing you can do is replace standard American desserts, or when you're having that craving and you're just like, I'm going to die if I don't have chocolate. You're not going to die. You can actually make it through, and you have to condition yourself to believe that. But if you're about to grab a Snickers bar, I would much rather you grab some protein powder and make a protein treat. Or if you're going to go for a Reese's, make your own protein Reese's. There are a million recipes, and you can look up recipes online. Keto recipes, carnivore even. There are even carnivore ones now with egg puddings and things of that nature that you can do. Maria has a bunch in here with protein powders, puddings, and things of that nature. Ooh, Celeste says, I want to try Maria's Equip Gushy Brownie recipe when I'm not in a cut. A lot of butter. Yeah, a lot of the time. And that's the thing is when you're looking up recipes, and I've done this for years, y'all, there have been very little recipes out there that would ever fit my way of eating. I was not only paleo but keto, so I was not doing dairy, and there were, for a long time there were no dairy-free keto recipes. There's still not that many. Most keto recipes you find out there are going to have a lot of fat because most people are doing way too high fat keto, and they're trying to keep their protein low, which is something they shouldn't be doing. But they also will then have erythritol and stevia glycerate and oh my gosh, allulose, and just all of these sugar alcohols, and they're doing a lot of it. And honestly, even Maria's recipes, a lot of hers call for that stuff. Whenever I'm doing Maria's recipes or anybody's recipes, I do not follow the recipe the way they have it listed. I don't put a bunch of powdered erythritol. I don't put a bunch of sugar alcohols. I do drops of liquid stevia or monk fruit to taste, to my taste, to where I can handle it. So you don't have to follow recipes just because that's the way they wrote it down. Don't be afraid to play around with things and try your own version. How can I make this higher protein, lower fat? What can I swap out? It may be a big fail. I've had to throw things away, and I really don't like food waste, but it's worth trying. It's worth testing things to find something that's going to work for you. Yes, Sarah, erythritol is made of corn, but regardless of what any of those things are made with, there's so many reasons to stay away from sugar alcohols, or really any sweeteners. The safest ones, in my opinion, are going to be your pure stevia or monk fruit extract, the liquid extract, not the granulated ones. But all sweeteners of any kind are hijacking your brain. They're making you continue to crave sweet. So for all my ladies who have sugar cravings and still haven't gotten over your cravings, even though you've been keto or carnivore for a long time, it's probably because you keep putting that sweet taste in your mouth. So there's many reasons to avoid sweeteners, but typically I say stay away from any of the granulated ones because they have to add something to it to put it in the powdered form. All right, I'm not gonna beat you or beat that dead horse. So protein powders, shakes, recipes, things you can do with protein powders. Let's talk about some high protein snacks, right? Those mini meals, things you could do on the go when you must have a snack. Okay, some of my go-tos are gonna be hard-boiled eggs. Now remember, you're also gonna get some fat to come along with that protein with a hard-boiled egg. So depending on where your macros are set, that may or may not work for you, but it should work at least to some extent. I hesitate to say jerkies, but biltong tends to be a better version than a jerky because most jerkies are going to be made with some sort of sugar and a whole lot of other ingredients you don't want to be consuming. So if you're going to look for a jerky, you can look for jerkies, but read the ingredients. I tend to not really like the chewiness of them either, but biltong, especially the thin shaved biltong, Sims is one of the brands. There's some good ones. I want to say Strive might have some of those, but biltong is a much better option. And I know for my Aussies and some of my ladies in other countries, you have a lot more biltong that's like a natural thing that you have more of. In the US, it's not as popular, but it tends to be a lot leaner and with a lot less additives. So biltong or clean jerky, whatever you can find, or clean meat sticks like chomp sticks, Country Archer, oh my gosh, Strive. I think Strive has some, I could be wrong. There's a few really good brands, Primal something. They can get pretty pricey, but it's worth it to just have some. I always keep a couple in my gym bag just to have something on the go. Depending on those sticks, which ones you're getting, the turkey sticks are super, super lean. The beef sticks, some of them are leaner, some of them are fattier. So you got to read those labels, but those are good things to have on the go. So eggs, biltong, meat sticks. You can make your own meat chips, beef chips, with lean deli meat. So your chicken, your turkey, your roast beef. Or I've gotten this thin sliced New York strip that some of y'all have seen in Costco. But that is more of a 2-to-1 protein to fat. So you're still getting a good bit of fat with that. But, and I've talked about it on another masterclass, I think, and I did it on my private group, client group chat. I'm going to show it to you because I have it here again, and I'm about to actually make like the whole thing to bring with me because I'm flying out tomorrow. So this whole pound, I think it's a pound, 14 ounces, beef shaved steak from Old Neighborhood is the brand. I find this at Aldi. It is 22 protein to 12 fat. So it's about 2-to-1 protein to fat. This I'm going to put in my air fryer, or I might dehydrate it in the oven because I don't have a dehydrator. But this is going to be my travel snacks. I'm going to make a ton of that to bring with me. La la la. Okay, other snack ideas. PSMF bread travels well. Oh my gosh, I keep going back to the PSMF stuff, but I made Maria's PSMF fries the other night for the first time. I need to post that on the group. They came out really, really good. It's just the bread. You slice it up into like fry shaped slices and pop it in the air fryer with seasonings and spray it with an oil. Let's see. I do not have a meat grinder. We are on a moratorium from buying any more kitchen gadgets. They have overtaken our kitchen. We had to put things in storage. It's just crazy. No more kitchen gadgets for now, at least not until we move again. So what are y'all's other favorite protein snacks, high protein snacks? I started playing with dairy again recently, starting with cultured dairy. And so my 2 top favorites recently have been the zero sugar Chobani and the Too Good yogurts, which are the lowest in carbs and sugars I can find. Also very low in fat and high in protein. So those yogurts, and then the Good Culture cottage cheese. And they have the full fat and the low fat version, but both of them are pretty low in fat and pretty high in protein. Alice, I'm glad you asked about pork rinds. Here's the deal with pork rinds. You're going to get a lot of fat for the protein in pork rinds, for one. And the protein in pork rinds is like the protein in collagen. It is not a complete protein. So it's not going to give you what you need for muscle protein synthesis. So you're not getting all the amino acids from it that you would get from a piece of steak, chicken, or even a protein powder like a whey or a egg white protein powder or eggs. So the thing with pork rinds, I would consider pork rinds. I kind of consider pork rinds and bacon to be a fat source first and a protein source second. I don't look at those as protein options. Matter of fact, when I track my pork rinds, I actually create an edited version and I cut the protein in half because I don't want to rely on that to get me to my protein goal. So, so cottage cheese, and if you do dairy, I am not the expert on dairy because for so many years I didn't consume it at all. But the yogurt and the cottage cheese are kind of my two of my new go-tos, which I've now taken out again for a little while. But those were some good options for high protein options that you could pair with other things to make a meal out of it, or a mini meal snack. But there are other cheeses and dairy products that are also higher protein and lower fat. And I'm sure that my ladies who do eat cheese in the group can tell you what some of those are as well. Other hacks for increasing your protein while decreasing your fat or managing your fat. Something just came to mind and now I am, not adding. The simplest way to do it is to not add additional fat to your meals. So pick your fattier meats and your leaner meats and combine those, but then don't add butter or add tallow and all of that to the meal. You can cook your foods in broth, and that will give you a tiny bump in protein. The broth is, once again, it's more like collagen. It's not really giving you quality protein, but it's mostly all protein if you separate the fat from the broth. So I will, when I do something in the crock pot, like my lamb leg, I take all the broth at the end, I pour it into jars and I let it cool, and then I put it in the fridge, and then all the fat will rise to the top, and then I pull the fat off, I rinse it, and I store that separately so I can count out how much lamb fat I'm using to cook with, and then I also use the broth to cook with. So I'm managing how much fat I'm getting in that without going crazy on the fat. The other thing I was going to say about the adding the fats, what was it? Broth. Darn it, I lost it, but I'm sure it'll come back to me if it wasn't important. Oh, the spray oils. So you got to be careful with the spray oils because a lot of them are cheap and they're adding like lecithin or something to make it spray out of the bottle. But there are some that are just the oil. So read the label. Once again, never assume anything. Read every single label all the time, and unless you've bought the thing before and you already know. But I buy the ones that are just olive oil or just coconut oil, and then I use those if I need something on the pan, but otherwise I just want to cook something without it sticking instead of needing to add like tablespoons of fat. Ooh, Sarah's dropping all kinds of recipes in here. Cool. Or not necessarily recipes, but ideas for things she does for meals. Yeah, the air fryer is a great way to cut down on fat with anything that you eat. However, what I will say there, because a lot of people have asked me, how do I track the things I'm cooking in the air fryer? All that fat is coming off. Like, how do I subtract the fat? I'm like, you don't. And that's just kind of a Bikini pro tip. Always track it raw whenever you're cooking it yourself. If you're dining out, once again, you're gonna have to track it as a cooked entry. Or if you're buying a rotisserie chicken, you're gonna have to track that as a cooked recipe. So anytime you're buying food that's already cooked, track it as cooked and make sure it's a cooked entry. Because if you're tracking it raw, you're getting two different sets of numbers because food loses weight when it cooks, it loses water weight. So you're gonna get two different amounts of food if you're tracking raw versus cooked. So always make sure you're matching it up and tracking it the way you're eating it. But I say that because, and now I remember the other little thing I was going to say about bacon. Don't let me forget, it was about bacon. But with the air fryer, let's say you're cooking the air fryer, you discard the fat, and then you want to track it without the fat. There's no way of knowing. There's zero way of knowing how much fat came off of that thing. So you're gonna have to track it with the raw weight from whatever it said the fat was. And then what I like to do is take that bottom tray and pour it right back on over my food afterwards, because if I'm tracking the fat, I'm eating the fat. I'm not letting it go to waste. Because not just on prep, but if you're trying to change your body composition and you're dialing in and you're tracking your macros, it's really, you either track them 100% or you might as well not track at all. Because if you are somewhere in between and you have things that are untracked, you have no real way of knowing how much you're eating. So if you're tracking things and you discard the fat, and you track it with the fat, but you didn't eat the fat, you're probably going to be, who knows, you could be 20, 30 grams under your fat. And then you're not going to know why you're exhausted, you have no energy, your mood is low, your libido's in the tank. All of these things are happening because you're probably eating nowhere near as much fat as you thought you were eating. So the key with tracking is you want to track accurately. Nothing's ever going to be perfect because food labels are allowed to lie. So if you're tracking using the scanning and you're tracking what it says on the label, that's going to be a little off. That could be up to 20% off, they're allowed. So, we're not talking about trying to get perfectly accurate on things, but we do want to be as accurate as we can control, which means we need to track it and then we need to eat what we're tracking. That's the only way you're going to know if your macros are working for you or not. You don't want to be undercutting or overshooting anything. So I cook things in the air fryer and then I use the fat because I tracked it. And I love my fats, so I'm not going to deprive myself of my fats. Now, the hack or the trick with bacon. Okay, most meats, pretty much all meats I've ever seen, except bacon, on the label, it is giving you the nutrition information for a raw amount. Let's say 4 ounces of chicken. Typically, it's a 4-ounce thing. 4 ounces, they list it as a serving. That's raw. So whatever they put in that, if you're cooking it and let's say ground beef, for example, you're doing the 96 or the 90% lean ground beef. The fat is going to come out in the pan. I say eat that fat because it's already tracked in there because it was tracked in the raw amount. So the raw amount is going to let go of that fat. Use that fat because you're already tracking it. Do not do this with bacon. If you have been cooking bacon and then you have all this fat in the pan and then you throw your veggies in the pan or you throw whatever, your eggs or whatever else you're cooking into the pan with the bacon fat and you're eating that and you're not tracking the bacon fat, that's at least 15 grams more fat that you didn't realize you're eating. Because with bacon, what they have on the label is for a cooked slice. They do it on purpose because they want it to look lower calorie. Every other meat is giving you raw, unless you buy it cooked, and then it'll probably have it for cooked. But bacon gives you the amounts for the cooked piece. A cooked slice of bacon does not include all that fat that was left in the pan. So always, if you're eating bacon, and then what you need to do is you need to measure out that fat that's in the pan, pour it into something and weigh it out. And then if you're going to use it to cook with, or pour it on top of, or eat it, consume it in any way, you need to know how much you're consuming, and then you need to track it as bacon grease or bacon fat. So that could be, if some of y'all are like eating a lot of bacon and you haven't been tracking it that way, and you're like, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight, you're probably eating too much fat, probably going over your fat every day, and you don't even realize it. So every time I get a chance to bring that up, I got to bring that up because I didn't know it for a very long time. For years, I cooked my greens in bacon fat and I never measured it. And I did not know that I was probably eating 30 grams or more, because typically for one serving, it's like a tablespoon, and that's like 15 grams of fat. So if you're doing 2 servings of bacon, that's 30 grams of fat you were not tracking. That'll very quickly kill your fat loss. Okay, so that was hack number 5, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So the hacks: combine protein sources in a meal. Number 2, add shrimp or egg whites to anything. Number 3, make PSMF recipes. Number 4, protein powder shakes or snacks, protein powder things. Number 5, high protein snacks for on the go. Your yogurts, cottage cheese, eggs, biltong, meat sticks, deli meats that are cooked in the air fryer, like chips, travel well. I think if you're a dairy eater, I think string cheese would go in that camp as well, probably. Or like so many of us have done, and I used to do, grilled chicken, make a whole bunch of it, always have it available in your fridge or your freezer. Purse chicken, take a little baggie, put a couple of tenders of grilled chicken in there, put it in your purse. And I like to do it with mustard, so I'll put like packets of mustard in there as well. So that's always an option. Okay. Any questions or comments before we hop off for the night? And I'll work on that cheat sheet for you and drop that before the end of the week. But in the meantime, keep sharing in the group, post your photos of your food, post your recipes, share meal ideas, your high protein hacks. If there's anything I didn't cover here, yeah, let us know what you do to hit your protein. Keep them coming because these ideas are what help the ladies who are struggling. So remember to, if you have a struggle and you feel embarrassed to ask, do not feel embarrassed in this group. We are 100% real. We love you the way you are, right where you are, and we'll be here for you. So you're always free to share whatever you're struggling with, and we will be there to help you out. All right, ladies, I will see y'all next Monday. And I think we're going to talk about alcohol next Monday because that has come up quite a bit, like multiple times from multiple clients this week. So we'll make next week's class all about alcohol. And in the meantime, in between time, go crush your goals this week. Kill it. I hope to see you in the group. Good night.